second. Something's different. Is this how we do Ask Homesteady now? Things are going to be changing for Ask Homesteady. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but first let's get to your question. The first thing you're probably thinking to yourself, you super fans at least, is the location has changed. Austin's doing Ask Homesteady in the workshop. Kind of. Yes, today we were shooting Ask Homesteady in the workshop. Why? Like I said, we'll get to that in just a bit. First, I want to get right into some questions. This is Ask Homesteady after all. Ask Homesteady is the weekly show that we produce here on Homesteady where we take some time to answer the questions that you've left on this week's videos. How does it work? How do you get a question answered? Well, that is still exactly the same. All you have to do is leave a question in the comment section of one of this week's videos with the hashtag, all one word, Ask Homesteady, and your question can be featured on Ask Homesteady. That is still happening, and today's question comes from somebody who did just that. Today's question was asked by Evie. She says, "Love this so much," commenting on this new workshop that we've put together that we're in today. We did a video this week, a couple videos. We're working with my parents. All month long we've been working on this workspace. You've been watching us get this ready to be a homestead workshop. And now here it is. We have this beautiful homestead workspace, and Evie says she loves it. Can you do a video on setting up a homestead shop / building space from scratch? Like tools and such that you suggest every homesteader have on hand. That would be very helpful. Evie, awesome question. If you have a homestead, that means you probably have some outbuildings, a chicken coop at the very least, raised beds, or if you would like to or are moving to a homestead, you will need to have a chicken coop or some raised beds, eventually maybe a barn. The point is, when you have a homestead, you are constantly building things. And I thought this was an awesome question to dive into today on what tools and maybe also equipment the beginning homesteader should have. So here's what I've done. I've put together a comprehensive list of everything that we got for our homestead, from the very first power tool to the nice chop saw that you just saw in this week's video that my parents surprised me with. So all the tools that we got, because let's be honest, tools are expensive, and if you go out tomorrow and buy all the tools that you're gonna need, you're going to spend $1,000. I know that is the exact figure because I added up all the tools that I have on this list and equipment, and it equals $1,000. So don't worry if you don't have $1,000 to buy tools. What I've done is I've put this list in order so you can slowly over the next 10 years, that's about as long as it took me to buy all these tools, get the tools you need for a homestead. And I'm gonna put them in the order that is most needed in the beginning, that you're gonna use all the time, to like the very last tool that I added to the collection, which was the really nice chop saw. So first tool, before we even talk about tools, let's talk about the space. If you're going to put together a homestead shop workspace, you need some space, and that space has a couple of requirements you're going to want to consider before you pick a spot for a workshop. First, you want to have a clean area, so if it means getting rid of some stuff, maybe clearing out your garage a little bit or an outbuilding, clear some space. Good lighting is very helpful in your workspace because you want to be able to see what you're working on, what you're doing. If you don't have good lighting, like in this garage we have some good LED lighting, get yourself a set of halogen lights. You can buy a set for 40 bucks. I have a link below to a set of halogen lights. I will have links below to all the equipment that I talk about today, so if you want to know what we're using, links below. A set of $40 halogen lights are going to light up the room real bright, They don't take up too much space and you don't have to do any fancy installation for those. So good clean space, good lighting. You're gonna need electricity. Don't put your workshop space in an outbuilding that doesn't have power, because you wanna run power tools, you need to be able to plug them in. Another thing you want to consider when selecting your workshop space is that it's a well ventilated area. A lot of sawdust, maybe some fumes depending on what you're working on. So make sure there's windows or a garage door you can open. Speaking of garage doors, if you're building large things like cow milking stanchions, you're going to want to be able to move what you're building out of your workspace. So you want to pick a spot that has big doors. If you have a basement, you might not want to build your workshop if it has to go through a hallway and a couple turns to get to the workshop and out. Pick a spot that you can get outside easily. Clean space, $40 halogen lights, pretty low cost for getting the spot ready. Now you have the space selected, let's talk about a few basic hand tools. I don't want to spend too much time on hand tools because, you know, hand tools are kind of basic. But here's 4 things that you're going to want to make sure you have right away when you get a Homestead. Get yourself a 16-ounce smooth-faced hammer. This is kind of your multi-purpose hammer. This is going to do you right for, you know, anything you need to be hammering. There's your solution. An adjustable wrench. This thing is so dang handy because it adjusts. Before you can go out and buy a whole entire set of different size wrenches, just get one adjustable wrench. Whoa, that was fun. Gonna want to get yourself some sort of socket. A socket set, that's what you want. Oh boy, I don't know if that one goes together. And finally, some quick grips. These things are awesome if you're working alone in your workshop. If you need to, you know, secure something down, these things do a great job. They're very handy. You can get a variety pack. I have a link below for a variety pack that has 6 of them. Now, this is the very, very basics. I know a lot of you are saying like, Ost, you forgot about this hand tool or that hand tool. Boop. Comment below all the hand tools and any other tools that I might forget in today's list. Leave your comments below and that'll help out Evie and anybody else who's watching who wants to know what tools to start with. But basically, the day you move onto your homestead, you're gonna need a hammer. There's gonna be something you have to secure. Having one adjustable wrench is really, really helpful. The quick grips, not quite as immediate need, but as we get into bigger projects, those will be really handy. And of course, a set of sockets, I mean, you just kind of need those. Let's get into the more fun part of this question, which is power tools. Unstoppable! Power tools can get expensive very quickly, so this is one of those areas, as you move onto your homestead, if you have no power tools, don't spend $1,000 day one. You're not going to need it. In order of the very first tool that I had on the homestead to the very last power tool I got on the homestead, I'm going to dive into what I suggest a homesteader gets day one and then what you could get, you know, 10 years into your journey. The very first tool I think you're going to need, and this is a $127 battery powered DeWalt. I call it a Sawzall. You might call it a, what is the word they call this? Anyway, people comment below. Reciprocating saw, that's the word. These are incredibly handy. As a brand new homesteader, having a battery powered Sawzall versus a plug-in one will be extremely handy, because I not only use this for construction projects here in the workshop, but cutting down small trees that are, you know, in my fence line, cutting old fence lines. You can get blades in here for metal, cut right through the old fencing or the older outbuildings. You might need to cut stuff, and these things can cut through anything. You can change out the blades very, very quickly. You can have wood blades, metal blades. They're very handy. They can go anywhere. But one of the downsides of the reciprocating saw, or the Sawzall, is that you don't get very straight cuts. A lot of that will depend on how good your control is of the saw. And even then, you're going to be shaking all over the place when you're using it. So you're not going to build a beautiful table like you saw in this week's videos with a Sawzall. But as your first day on the homestead, you're going to be using this, and you're going to use it all the time. So for 130 bucks, I would suggest this be your first purchase, because when you move to the new homestead, you're gonna be taking things down. Old outbuildings you're gonna be changing, and you're gonna want one of these to be destroying stuff and taking apart things. The minute you decide, now I wanna start changing things, well, you're gonna need different set of tools. Your hammer can help, but let's talk about the power tools that don't just cut and destroy, but also the power tools that help you build stuff. And that's where we get to the next, number 2. The next tool, I should say tools, because I really suggest you get these together. And as you can tell, I'm kind of a DeWalt guy. I like my DeWalts. You can buy this kit from DeWalt. It is a drill and impact driver combo. I really suggest you get the combo because it's $160. If you buy just the impact driver or just the drill, they're each $100. And it is so handy to have both of them when you're doing a project. Why? Well, let's say you're building something like the table I'm working on right here that you saw us build this week. You use your drill to pre-drill the holes that you then instantly screw your screws into. If you have both of these, this is how that looks. Drill, screw. If you only have a drill, this is how it looks. Drill, okay, kick it in reverse, take out the bit, put in the screw bit, tighten it, drill it in. Now I know you could pre-drill all the holes and then change the bit once and then put in all the screws. But this just does a better job. An impact driver adds more force to get those screws in good and hard, and you will work so much quicker with both of them. And you will save $40 buying the combo. So I really suggest, if you're gonna spend $100 on the one, just wait till you have 60 more bucks. Get the combo. You will be unstoppable. All right. That was like, when I bought that, money was tight and the extra 60 bucks it hurt. But I've never regretted that decision. That was a great buy. Good combo, link below for it. Let's get to the next power tool. By the way, if you can't swing the extra 60 bucks, get the drill. The drill can do both drive screws and drill holes. The impact driver does not drill holes well. So if you can only do one, get the drill. Okay, next tool. When you're building things, you're using your hammer and your nails and your drills and your screws. If you want to build nice things like a table or a cow milking stanchion or any other things you've seen us build on this channel, if you're not just working with like screwing together a bunch of pallets for something quick, you're going to want nice clean cuts, and like I mentioned, the reciprocating saw is not going to do that. This next tool is the next one you're going to want to get, and it's really cheap if you go the route I did. So this here is a Ryobi. I am a DeWalt guy. I like my DeWalts, especially for the battery powered stuff. I like to be able to just know that these expensive tools are going to last and be reliable. Nothing against Ryobi, my dad was a DeWalt guy, I'm a DeWalt guy. But this is like a $39 saw. I mean, it is so cheap. It's a corded one. The reason why I go corded on what I refer to as a skill saw, but it's a circular saw. This I find I use more in a workshop. If I'm just running and gunning on the homestead, doing something quick, maybe, cutting stuff, I can just grab this and plug the battery in and go wherever I need to go. If I'm building something, I'm setting up shop in the workshop or even on location, I'm gonna have power, and you will save money and also have more power and less dead batteries if you go the corded route for your circular saw. This Ryobi corded saw let me see the exact price, $35. So one of the cheaper tools, and you're going to get really nice clean cuts. If you use a square while you're cutting or even clamp on a track, you can get perfect straight cuts. So that's going to do a lot nicer, straighter cuts when you're building things that need to be right angles, look good. Again, when you first move, the day you move on your homestead, you probably don't need that. But as you get further along in your homesteading endeavors and you're building more things and you want them to look good, circular saw. Okay. The last, I mean, this is kind of cool. You saw me get this last tool. I just got this saw this week, and that shows you that it is super nice to have, but it's also not something you need to go out and spend a ton of money on right away. This is a chop saw, or technically it's a compound miter saw. This saw is the most expensive tool, power tool, anything you're gonna see today in this video. You do not need this right away on your homestead. This is for next level building projects if you have a lot to do. The reason a chop saw is so nice is because it's set up, ready to go. This is a 12-inch compound miter saw. It will cut so quickly. If I turn it on here and release the guard. Oh, I didn't plug it in. Unstoppable! It will cut all day, boom, 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 quick, clean, perfect right angle cuts for your wood. So when we were building the table that we're on here, we had a lot of cuts to do. We needed them to be perfect right angles. If you're doing that with the handheld skill saw, it's slow. You need to use a square, a handheld square, or maybe like I mentioned, you can make a track for yourself to do long straight cuts. It's much slower at cutting lots of lumber at perfect right angles. Also, this can do not just right angles, this can do 45s. It can go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, all the way up to 50-degree angles. And this particular 12-inch compound miter also angles side to side. If I screw this here, I can make it tilt. That's something fancy that I don't even know what I would use that for. To be honest, if I had been buying my own chop saw, I would not have bought this one because it's $350, which is a lot of money, and it's a little fancier than what I would have chose to pay for. Now, I am thrilled that I got this. This was a gift from my parents, and it was an awesome gift. The chop saw I probably would have paid for is a $200 10-inch version. It doesn't have the adjustability in this direction, but it can do 45-degree angles. It's $200. It's the chop saw we used all week while my parents were here. It's the one that my parents have. They got me a nicer saw than what they have. That was awesome. I was so surprised. So thanks, Mom and Dad. If you can swing it, this version, awesome. If not, the 10-inch $200 one, I'll have links below to both. They're both really good saws, and I've used that 10-inch DeWalt chop saw a ton working with Dad. If you can swing it, this is awesome, and you can do a ton of things with it. But if not, the 10-inch one's great. That's the power tools, but to have a workspace, you need a few more things. So let's talk the last few things here. So in addition to the tools that you see us using in these videos as we make things, when you have a workshop, you need surfaces to work on. And before I had this really fancy table that we just built with my dad, what I would use as a work table is a set of horses and then just some good straight lumber, probably the lumber that we were using in the project. So to elevate yourself, make sure that you're not working down on the ground, you're working up high, get yourself a set of horses. We used this last week DeWalt adjustable horses. Those were really nice because you could raise them up or down depending on what you're doing and what height you're comfortable at. But as you can see, they make a nice work table. This table that you saw us building this week on our videos we're putting it together, it's a design of my dad's. It's a custom-made workshop table, and it was custom-made for the needs that he had in his own workshop. He just kind of designed it and put it together. It has some drawers. We mentioned in the video about this table, these drawers can be used as a pair of horses. If you need to cut a piece of wood real quick, you can pull these out, put a piece of wood on it, cut it, slide them back in. So that's a real sweet feature. We put the masonite top on. The table has a shelf underneath it for storing, you know, extra pieces of lumber or whatever. This is some extra pegboard I have. So it has a nice shelf for that. I connected it to power so I can plug it in, and I got a nice power strip. It's just a really awesome workspace. It's also on wheels, so I can move it wherever I need it in the workshop. If I'm doing a project over there and I need to back a truck up to it, I can swivel the table and move it. It's a really awesome addition to the workshop, and there's a lot, you could find plans online for custom work tables. What about the plans for this table? Well, let's talk about that. This is a perfect time to start talking about the changes you're gonna see in Ask Homesteady. You may notice I've spent a real long time answering the first question, Evie's question. We're gonna now show you a new feature to Ask Homesteady, and that is the Ask Homesteady bonus question. And some weeks it might be bonus questions. You see, we're changing the way we're gonna answer your questions here on Homesteady. For the last 6 months, or however long it's been we've been doing Ask Homesteady, it's been like a half hour, and then it became an hour-long show where we answered a bunch of questions, but they were kind of all over the place, different topics. We got some complaints about that. A lot of people had a hard time finding answers that they were looking for. People didn't even know that I had answered their questions because I could only name the video one title with like one answer. So this video here would be called "What Tools Do I Need to Start My Homestead Off With?" something like that. And then I would answer like 10 other questions, but I can't list those questions in the title, and people don't always read the descriptions, and answers were just getting lost. So we have decided now we're going to change Ask Homesteady. We're going to shorten them up. We're going to shoot them on location as we have done today. So this question was about a workshop, so you saw it on location. If next week's topic is all about goats, I'm going to be out with the goats. And that's for one of our super fans, Candace, who was like, all these videos of us sitting at the table is boring. I want to see more goats. Super fan Candace, you got some more goats, or whatever we're talking about. This week it's a deer head. I hope that doesn't bum me out. Yes, changes to Ask Homesteady are, we are going to focus topically on questions. We're gonna have one primary question we answer, and then follow-up questions, bonus questions that are topical to it. Today's bonus question, and we only had one today, is Andrea. She says, awesome table. You really, really, really need to post a link to the plans. Hashtag Ask Homesteady. Andrea, there are no plans for this table because it was my dad's design. He just like thought it and made it, which that like baffles my brain so much that you can like think and like make, yeah. So he has no plans. We cannot link to the plans. But if you are a Homesteady pioneer, we have a much more in-depth version of the video that shows how to build this table, and that will be coming out this week. I will also have a lumber list for you in the Pioneer Library along with the video. So if you want to build this table, become a Homesteady pioneer. It's $5 a month. In addition to that video, you'll see all the other how to build projects. We have extended versions at the Pioneer Library. We have classes taught by my mentors, people that I go to for advice, have taught classes on everything from food preservation, and we have an organic gardening class in there. We have some classes I've taught, like how to do meat pigs for your family every year. There's a whole lot of bonus content. There's like 20 podcasts for pioneers only. So anyway, link below or at the end of this video to become a pioneer. $5 a month. It is the only way we can produce this show. So those pioneers, the supporters of the show, are getting thanked for that. In return, they're getting good quality content. So we're gonna be making more pioneer content. So that's it for the questions this week. That's the tools you're gonna want in your shop, what you're gonna wanna do with your workspace. In addition to what you saw there, just keep some screws, some nails. I like to keep fence staples around. But that's what I'm working with here in the workshop, and I hope that helps Evie and everyone watching. Ask Homesteady is now going to be shorter, topical, shot on site. We hopefully will get a few more questions answered each week if more and more people ask similar questions on the same topic. I really wanted to be able to help you the best way possible, which is the biggest reason we made the change to Ask Homesteady. People were too long. They were boring videos because we were shooting them all in the same spot. And quiet, dogs are making noise over here. And it was hard to find the answers to your questions. And I want you, if we take the time to answer your question, I want you to actually be able to find it. And in the future, you'll be able to find the answers to questions much easier with this new format of Ask Homesteady. Don't worry if you like the hour-long thing, because if you're like, oh man, I like the long shows, I like sitting watching Homesteady for an hour, the podcast is coming back. Tomorrow, Kay and I sit down to record the very first episode back. The studio's ready, we're ready. So we will be back to doing long form, but those will also be more topical because they're podcasts. So I think this new content strategy we have coming back from our break is going to be more helpful. It's going to be better for all you viewers here on YouTube. It's going to be better for our Homesteady pioneers, which if you're thinking about becoming one, we would be so appreciative. It comes out to about $0.25 per episode here on YouTube. Plus you get all the bonus content. So consider that. You can click here to become a pioneer, and we will see you in tomorrow's video, which will be a sneak peek of the very first podcast back. Check that out tomorrow, and we'll shut this one down. My ridiculous hair will shut this one down.